My son Michael's voice sliced through the quiet Tuesday afternoon like a blade. Mom, is your boyfriend there? I nearly dropped my reading glasses into my coffee. Yes, he's upstairs showering. Why? I asked, already dreading the answer. That's impossible, Michael said, his tone calm but firm. He just checked into my hotel with another woman. I froze. My heart started pounding like a war drum. 8 months of love, laughter, and healing, all teetering on the edge of betrayal. I looked up toward the ceiling where the water was still running. My boyfriend, David, had been in the shower for over 20 minutes, and now I knew. Whoever was in my master bathroom wasn't who I thought he was. Let me back up. My name is Margaret Sullivan, Maggie to my friends. I'm 63 years old, a retired high school English teacher from Boston, and a widow. My husband, Robert, passed away 3 years ago, and I'd only recently begun to open myself up to love again. That's when I met David Patterson, or so he said his name was, at a grief support group. He was 58, charming, silver-haired, with kind blue eyes and a soothing voice. He said he'd left a successful career in investment advising to care for his dying wife. He spoke of loss and love with the kind of sincerity that makes you believe in second chances. And for 8 months, I did believe. David had woven himself into my life seamlessly. He stayed over twice a week, brought flowers or wine, listened to my stories about Robert, and never rushed me. He met my son Michael briefly at Easter. Everything about him seemed respectful, even comforting. I had no idea I was standing on a foundation of lies. Then, just as I was processing Michael's call, I heard footsteps, not the heavy, confident steps of David's size 11 shoes, but lighter ones, cautious and unfamiliar. I turned around slowly, still holding my phone. A young woman, maybe 30, with auburn hair and green eyes, stood in my living room, staring at me in horror. "You're not supposed to be here," she said, as if I were the intruder. I blinked. "Excuse me?" My voice was calm but clipped. "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?" She looked like she wanted to disappear. David told me this was his house. He gave me a key, said I could stay while he traveled for business. My apartment's being fumigated. She held up a silver key, the exact kind I'd given David a month ago. My mind reeled. "What's your name?" I asked. "Sophia Chen," she said. I thought I was David's girlfriend." I nodded, barely keeping it together. "Oh, honey, we both thought we were." Just then, the shower shut off. Sophia and I locked eyes, frozen. "He doesn't know you know about me, does he?" she whispered. I shook my head. "And he doesn't know I know about you." She swallowed hard. "What do we do?" For the first time that day, I smiled. "We give him a show." David strolled down the stairs like he owned the place. Towel around his waist, hair damp and perfectly combed, exuding effortless charm. "Maggie, darling, you're home early," he said, moving to kiss my cheek. Then he noticed Sophia. "And Sophia, I thought you were at your sister's." The man didn't flinch. His performance was almost admirable in its boldness. But I wasn't playing anymore. "Actually, David," I said, sitting my coffee down deliberately, "Sophia and I just had a fascinating chat." His smile faltered. "About how you gave me a key to my house," I added. Sophia stepped forward and told me this was your house. His towel slipped, and he fumbled to hold it up, suddenly less composed. "There's obviously been a misunderstanding." "Oh, I think the only misunderstanding here is that you believed you could get away with this," I said. "Michael saw you check into the hotel with another woman." For the first time, David, no whoever he really was, looked shaken. "I can explain," he said. "Then explain," I replied, "but you better start talking fast." He sank onto my antique settee, towel barely hanging on. "My name's not David Patterson," he began, voice low. "It's Daniel Morrison, and I'm not an investment advisor. I used to be a caregiver. I took care of my mom for 12 years until she died. I spent everything. When she passed, I had nowhere to go. No money, no home. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. I knew how grief could hollow you out, but this wasn't about grief anymore." "So you started lying to women like us?" Sophia asked, "pretending to be someone you're not?" He nodded. "At first it was just companionship, but then it became something else. I couldn't stop." I looked at him, really looked at him. All the things I'd ignored suddenly made sense. The vague answers, the carefully rehearsed stories, the charm that never quite let me in past a certain point. "How many women?" I asked. He didn't answer at first. "Currently," he finally said, "7." Sophia gasped. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. "7 women you've lied to, romanced, manipulated." He looked at the floor. I never meant to hurt anyone. But he had. And the worst part was, this story didn't end with us. I was starting to suspect it began long before we ever met. And I was going to find out exactly how deep the rabbit hole went. My son Michael's voice sliced through the quiet like a siren in a library. Mom, is your boyfriend there? I blinked, nearly dropping my reading glasses into my coffee. Yes, I replied, eyeing the ceiling. He's upstairs, showering. Why? Michael's voice dropped into that stern hotel manager tone of his. Because I just watched him check into my hotel with another woman. My stomach dropped. I heard the water running overhead, the same shower David had been in for the past 20 minutes. My fingers trembled around the coffee cup as I set it down. 8 months of what I thought was love suddenly felt like a trapdoor had opened beneath me. I opened my mouth to respond when I heard footsteps. Light ones, careful, not David's heavy stride. Michael, I whispered into the phone. I need to call you back. I turned, heart pounding, and found myself staring at a stranger standing in my living room doorway. She looked around 30, long auburn hair, wide green eyes brimming with confusion. You're not supposed to be here, she said almost to herself. I stared. Excuse me? Who are you, and what are you doing in my house? She flinched. I'm Sophia. David told me this was his house, that he lived here alone. I've been staying here while my apartment gets fumigated. She lifted a silver key that looked identical to the spare I'd given David last month. The pieces clicked together faster than I could breathe. He told you this was his house? I asked quietly. She nodded. He gave me a key 3 weeks ago. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I steadied myself, my voice surprisingly calm. I'm Maggie. I thought I was David's girlfriend. Her face crumpled. So did I. Upstairs, the water shut off. Silence fell between us like a dropped curtain. We both stared toward the stairs, frozen. He doesn't know you know about me, does he? Sophia asked. I shook my head. And he doesn't know I know about you. We stood there in mutual disbelief until we heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps descending. And then he appeared. Towel wrapped around his waist, silver hair damp, skin still steaming from the shower. He looked like a man entirely in control, right up until he saw us both. His expression didn't change, not even a flinch. Ladies, he said smoothly, what a pleasant surprise. He kissed my cheek as if this were an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The scent of my expensive aftershave clung to his skin, another thing he'd borrowed. Sophia, he added, I thought you were at your sister's. He even managed to chuckle. I set my coffee down, never breaking eye contact. Actually, we've been having the most fascinating conversation. Sophia found her voice. About how you told me this was your house. I picked up the baton, and how you gave her a key to my front door. His composure slipped. The towel sagged slightly, and he clutched it tighter. There's obviously been some confusion, he started. Sophia, maybe you should... No, I said firmly. She stays. Maggie, he said, his voice shifting to something softer, more intimate. Perhaps we should talk alone. Like you talked alone to the woman Michael saw you check into his hotel with? His face paled. Who? Rebecca Martinez, Sophia said flatly. He sat down slowly, the facade finally crumbling. I can explain, he said. Please do, I replied, folding my arms. Sophia and I have all afternoon. What followed was a confession wrapped in desperation. His name wasn't David Patterson. It was Daniel Morrison. No, wait. Actually, it was Thomas Bradley Hutchinson. Depending on the audience, he changed identities like hats. He claimed he'd once been a caregiver for his late mother, but eventually the truth came out. He'd been running cons for decades. Grief support groups, dating sites, community events. Anywhere lonely women gathered. He'd find them, charm them, earn their trust, and then siphon their money in small, calculated amounts. How many women? I asked. His voice cracked. 7, right now, but over the years, maybe 200. 200. That number hung in the air like smoke. I felt the air shift. This wasn't just betrayal, it was criminal. I stood and walked to my writing desk, pulling out a manila folder I'd kept hidden. I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago, I said, watching his face closely. I started suspecting something when your stories about being an investment advisor didn't check out. According to my PI, you've been stealing from all of us. Sophia gasped as I laid out the documents, bank records, transaction histories, credit card applications. You've taken nearly $40,000 in 8 months, I said, just from the women we know about. He buried his face in his hands. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, I replied, and now we're going to find the other women. By Thursday, I had Eleanor, Janet, Patricia, Rebecca, Linda. Each woman had believed she was his only one. We gathered around my dining room table like a jury ready to deliver a verdict. I presented the evidence, the identical love letters, the financial theft, the timelines that overlapped with impossible precision. And then we made a plan. We called it Lost Operation Showdown. Equal parts therapy session, legal prep, and poetic justice. On Saturday morning, he came back. That surprised me. After everything, he still had the audacity to walk through my front door, wearing the same leather jacket I'd once thought was sexy. Now just looking like a costume from a cheap heist movie. He gave me that wolfish smile, the one that used to make me weak in the knees. Now, it made me want to bleach the carpet. You said you wanted to talk, he said. I did, I replied. But I didn't say it would just be with me. He turned and stopped cold. 5 women stood behind me. Eleanor with her arms crossed like a principal about to hand out suspensions. Rebecca clutching a thick manila envelope of her own. Patricia already live streaming from a private Facebook group titled Victims of Thomas B. Hutchinson. He laughed, that same smooth, disarming laugh, until Linda stepped forward and said, Smile for the camera, Tommy. Flash! The light stunned him. So did the sound of the front door opening again, this time to admit Detective Alvarez. Thomas Bradley Hutchinson, she said, showing her badge. You're under arrest for felony fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. It turned out Sophia had contacted the police, and unlike the rest of us, she still had the receipts. Literal receipts. Bank transfers, wire instructions, even a few forged signatures on loan applications. She'd filed a formal report the day after our meeting, and Detective Alvarez had been quietly building the case since. Wait, he stammered. No, listen, this is all a misunderstanding. But the handcuffs clinked. As they walked him out, he looked over his shoulder at me, the charm completely gone. Just a hollow man in expensive cologne. Why? I asked him, one final time. His lips parted, maybe to apologize, maybe to lie again. But I turned my back before I had to hear it. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind, depositions, court hearings, statements to other victims. We found 37 women in the tri-state area alone. Some had lost their savings. One had given him power of attorney while undergoing chemotherapy. He'd sold her car while she was still in the hospital. He pled guilty to 15 counts and took a plea deal for 8 years in prison. But that wasn't the end, because out of the wreckage came something unexpected. Us. The women he'd fooled, hurt, used, we stayed in touch. Every Wednesday night became wine and war stories. We shared recipes, swapped dating horror tales, and slowly, steadily rebuilt our trust in ourselves. And me? I wrote about it. Not just an op-ed, not just a Medium blog post. Book. The kind you brought home. Hit the NYI bestseller list in March. I didn't write it for him. I wrote it for every woman who's ever ignored her instincts, silenced her doubts, or stayed a little too long because she believed love was supposed to hurt sometimes. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Love doesn't hide, love doesn't lie, and love doesn't empty your savings account.